Hello everyone, welcome to Test Taking 101. We're going to take a little bit of time in this video to look at your MCA test that is upcoming, and we're going to look at some ways that you can maximize your score on that test. And it's not only the MCA test that we're talking about here. All the things we're going to talk about also apply to any standardized test, the ACT, a college entrance exam, any of those types of tests this will be helpful for as well. Our first step is on motivation. Why do you do well on a test like this? Well, there's a few different reasons. Number one, how you score on this test is a reflection upon yourself. You can see where you stand amongst your classmates, you can see where you stand amongst the state, and make sure that you are working up to a grade level. Our next step then is to talk about the reflection upon your school. How you do on these tests will be a score that will go to the state and will help to rate our school. So we want to make sure we have as high a rated school as possible. Next, your results from this will help drive your curriculum. Your teachers will see where we score in each standard, and so therefore, as a teacher, we will change some of the things that we're teaching to make sure we're covering all the standards as well as possible, and also make sure we're not leaving anything out. Finally, we have our possible school rewards and possible interventions. As a school, we've given a reward to a lot of the seniors called the hour-long lunch for receiving high scores in both the regular classroom and on tests such as the MCA. So therefore, your scores may lead to some possible payoffs for you in the future. And there is also the other side of that, where if your score is not up to the level we feel it should be, there is a possibility you'll be assigned into some remediation courses in order to help build your skill level to make sure you can get back to the grade level you should be at and make sure you're performing well on the tests in the future. Our next step is to make sure that we are physically prepared to take the test. Some things that research has shown has really helped improve students' test scores. Number one of those is to make sure you're getting enough sleep. The night before the test, you need to make sure you're going to bed at a decent time, sticking to a normal routine, not staying up too late, getting enough sleep so that you are ready to do as well as possible on the test. Next, you want to make sure you eat a good breakfast on the day of the test. When you're thinking about things like being hungry, you tend to not perform as well on each test question. And in between the tests this year, the school will be offering a snack to help with this as well. These are all stressors that can cause you to not perform at your best. One of the big ones being getting to school on time. If you are rushing to get in the door, you feel all scattered, not ready to go, that tends to not lead to high test scores. And also, you want to make sure on the morning of the test, avoid your high stress drama situations. And so therefore, have things planned out ahead of time. Just try to stay away from the things that tend to get you worked up or focused on something beyond taking the test. And finally, you need to make sure you know what is needed to be prepared. If you need to have pencils, if you need to have paper, whatever you need, you want to make sure you have that. So again, right before the test, we aren't creating an anxiety situation by rushing to try to make sure we have everything we need. Be prepared, make sure you get a good night's sleep, eat something that morning, and get here on time. Avoiding stressful situations is some of the physical keys for you to be able to perform at your best. Now let's look at the taking of the test. The number one key for all the research that I've done on test taking is you need to make sure you get what you know right. So what that means is when you have a problem that you feel confident with, you need to make sure that you are taking your time and getting that right, not rushing through it because you think you know that already. Avoid the small errors on the problems you know. Then we come back to the problems that we don't know. What should we do if we don't know how to answer a question on a standardized test? Well, number one, you should probably skip that question, mark it for review, and go on making sure that you're staying positive and focused on the questions that you're getting right. You can come back and revisit that question later and give the best answer. So if you come across a problem you don't know how to solve, or a reading question you just have no idea what it's asking, you don't want to let yourself get worked up and stressed by that situation. Just skip it, come back to it at the end, and give the best answer possible. You want to make sure you do answer every question. So when you mark something for review, you want to make sure you go back and select an answer because you don't want to leave any questions blank. And remember, an educated guess is better than a blind guess. Don't just randomly select A, B, C, or D. Read through each possible answer and come up with the one that you think makes the most sense based on the reading or the problem that you think that answer makes the most sense is probably going to be a more accurate answer than just randomly plugging in an A, B, C, or D. We want to avoid that, just randomly entering letters onto our answer sheet. So now let's look at some specific tips for each test. Within your reading test, a lot of research tells us that reading the questions before you read the document or the article or whatever the paragraph that they've given you, research has shown that reading the questions first really helps you read with a purpose. So you want to make sure you're reading knowing what you're looking for. After you've read the article or the document once, you can go back and use skimming skills to look back after you've done the reading. You never want to skim the article for an answer if you've not read the full article to begin with. It is much easier to go back and find information when you have an idea where it is because you've already read the article. You can skim your way back and find the exact answer to the question that's being asked. Remember that in a paragraph, the main idea is most often found in the first and last sentence. The first sentence being the thesis statement and your last sentence being usually a wrap-up. And so therefore, most of the key information, the main ideas, will be found in the first sentence and the last sentence. Also, look for important word clues. You see here important is in italics, word is in bold, clues is underlined. You need to be looking for those types of things in an article. They may be giving you hints by making a word bold, underlining it, numbering it, putting it in italics. Those are words that you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to. And the final tip for our reading test is make sure your answers come from the reading. Oftentimes, a person that skips parts of the reading will read the questions and just pick the most logical answer, what seems to make the most sense to them. But oftentimes, that answer is not the correct answer. The answer that is correct is the one that is coming directly from the reading. So make sure that anytime you give an answer to a reading test question, the information you're giving was actually in the article. The math and science multiple choice tests are slightly different than your reading multiple choice tests. Couple tips here for math and science. Number one, make sure you read the entire question. Oftentimes there will be something at the end that may change the actual information you're trying to find. So make sure you read the entire question and make sure you answer the question that is asked. The test may mislead you with a multiple choice answer that you find during your process of solving the problem. And so because you see a number that you have on your paper, we want to bubble in that mark. But we want to make sure that we are answering the question that they are asking, not just a number that we recognize from our work. Make sure you solve the problem before you look at the answers. Multiple choice tests can be helpful, but they also can be harmful because if you've done the problem and your answer is not there, you know you need to go back and fix something in your work. That can cause people some stress. But we don't want to just randomly select the closest number to our answer. We want to go back and see where our mistake was. If you get to a problem and your answer does not match something in the answer section, you can often use number sense to eliminate one or two of the answers. If you start with 4 choices and you can eliminate 2, you've doubled your chance of guessing correctly. Oftentimes there will be one answer that makes absolutely no sense with the problem. And if you are totally lost and you're not sure how to attack a problem, you can start from the answers and go back and do a process of plugging in the answers back into the original problem. Just like you would check your work at the end of a solution, you can start with the answers, plug them back in, and find the correct answer. So these are different ways that you can attack those problems, but again, it's always best to do the problem yourself first if you know how to do it. The next part, our test anxiety page, is the one that causes a lot of people to not test well. And for whatever reason, some people seem to have a lot more anxiety about tests than others. The key here is don't be your own worst enemy. There is no grade for this. It is just a score. We are simply looking to see what you know. It will not affect your grades in your current classes. Also, one of the big advantages of an MCA test versus an ACT test is the MCA is not timed. And so therefore, if you need to spend extra time on some of the problems you're struggling with, that time is available to you. And remember, there is no prize for being the first one done. We don't want to race through anything. Make sure you're getting the things you know correct by spending the proper amount of time on them. And honestly, really, what are you going to do? Go back to class? That's the alternative. If you finish the test early, you end up going back to class. So therefore, you might as well take your time on the test and make sure you're getting the highest score possible. And my favorite test anxiety issue that I've talked with about a lot of different students is, what happens if you get 3 B's in a row? If you get the answer B for 3 straight answers, does that mean B can't be the next question? No. These are computer-generated tests. The answers do not have any pattern to them. I've watched multiple students go back and change an answer for that same situation where they have 3 B's in a row, and the next question they do correctly and get the answer to be B, but they mark C because it can't be 4 B's in a row. That doesn't make any sense. If you get an answer and you think that is the correct answer, that's the bubble you mark. Don't worry about number patterns. We've all done it. We've all looked back and said, this can't be right. However, don't change an answer that you've done the calculations for just because it doesn't fit into a pattern. All right, and finishing the test. Once you feel you have finished the test, make sure you go back and check all the questions you marked for review. Remember, those were the questions that we said we weren't sure how to do, so we skipped them and would come back to them later. Make sure you do get back and answer every one of those questions. Also, make sure all your questions are answered. A blank question is considered a wrong answer, so therefore you want to make sure you have something answered for every question. And once we've done this, we've made sure everything is answered, we've gone back, reviewed all our questionable ones. Now it's time to click the submit button and hope for the best. And make sure if you are finished and others are not, you don't want to be a distraction to anyone else around you, because again, our entire school's score count. So therefore, we want to make sure everyone does as well as possible. Best of luck to all of you on the upcoming tests.